You know what? I called it moto moto, right? Because in Zimbabwe, when someone says moto moto, it's basically the same in Lingala. It means fire, but it's
Okay.
like saying fire twice, like fire,
That's
fire.
that's actually what I was saying yesterday when I was talking about it. When I was saying
Mm.
that I would have you. I think you left the live probably at that moment because I was asking, does it mean fire like in Lingala? But then I saw the
Exactly.
logo. I saw the logo and I was like, yeah, it's fire.
Yeah, and I think it also means fire in Swahili as
Ah,
well.
yeah. Oh, yeah, of
So I think
course.
it's just
Yeah, yeah,
Bantu
yeah.
languages,
Yeah, exactly.
same word.
It's
But yeah, I
just
started it in 2017. That's when I started Moto Moto. But my podcasting journey actually started in 2007.
okay.
That was when I created my first podcast with my friend Chill. So we're basically doing a Zimbabwean music podcast because, like I told you, I was sort of in the industry before I went to Australia. But when I went to Australia, I realized like there was no plug for Zimbabwean music for anybody who was overseas because back then, like, it's not like there were streaming platforms or anything like that. So basically, I used all my connections that I had back home to get the latest music. So I would talk to like the artists, I would talk to producers since I already knew these guys personally, and get them to send me music. Then we had this podcast where we were playing Zimbabwean music to try and get people in the diaspora, like outside Zimbabwe, to actually listen to it and check it out. So it just grew and became this monster platform. And I think back then, at the height, we're doing roughly about, I think maybe about between 11 and 15,000 listens on the podcast every month. And that was
How many?
huge, between 11 and 15,000.
Wow, nice.
But that was huge because at that time there was no streaming platforms like where people could really like do that stuff. But at the same time, it was almost like we were educating Zimbabwean listeners and other people who were just interested in African music about the music using the podcast platform. But it was twofold. People didn't know what a podcast was. What's a
Yeah,
podcast, right?
true.
Like
Yeah.
people still struggle to understand that concept. So imagine we're trying to market this vehicle to tell people like, hey, this is a podcast, listen to it. And we just did this thing like telling people like, hey, it's radio on demand, listen to this Zimbabwean music, it's amazing. Because everybody, when they hear Zimbabwean music, they don't really know what it is. So
Okay.
we did that for a long time. I think we did that up until about 2013.
Wow.
And we just ran this podcast and it became really, really big. It became so big that I remember in Australia, people knew I was in Australia because you'd say it in the podcast. People looked for me and they were like, we just want to know who's the guy behind this. But I'm pretty reserved. I don't like being out there like that. So
Okay.
it was kind of weird, but I actually made some friends doing that. But basically, that's how the journey started. But then around 2017, after just missing podcasting for like 3-4 years, I was like, God, I got to do something. And I always wanted to do an African podcast where I would bridge the gap between Anglophone Africa, Lusophone Africa, Francophone Africa. Because if you look at any channel that we have, they always like the French music is always played with other French music
Yeah, that's true.
or French language
It's
music.
compartmentalized. That's true.
And I hate that. I
I do
absolutely
too.
hated that. So I was like, come on, like, and this is the reason why, like, Africa for me doesn't do a good enough job of monetizing within the continent
Yeah.
to try and get like an artist from maybe Cabo Verde doing a concert in Zimbabwe, for example. That's what I wanted. So that's why I started the whole podcast, because I really wanted to group things together, because I'm tired of filtering, Kaysha. I hate it. I don't like it.
Filtering.
Yeah, as in the compartmentalization, where they just keep like English language countries by themselves
Talk
and
about
French language.
hating it. Imagine me who sings in English, French, and Portuguese, Kizomba, Zouk, Afro, all types of Afro, and people are always here trying to name me just one thing. So trust me, I'm with you. I'm with you in the hating that.
Yeah, and you are interesting because you can speak so many languages. So for you, music can transcend so many cultures, so many borders, because a lot of people understand you from different songs.
Exactly. And I always say that music is the only one of the only things that can travel without a passport. Music
That's
goes like I can do a song literally in right now, put it on YouTube in 5 minutes, and it can be viewed in China in
right.
around 10 minutes. And it's something that has always been my dream. Back when there was the CD, everybody was happy because you made more money because you were selling CDs. Of course, you sell
Yeah.
10,000 CDs, you make 100,000 euros. You sell 100 streams, you make only 300 euros. So, of course, it's harder now for musicians, but I never been so happy because back when I was making and I was selling hundreds of thousands of records, I was super frustrated because my venue were limited to where the CDs could go. And
Right.
so everybody was pissed about piracy because they were like, oh, we sold like hundreds of thousands or millions of copies of your album in Angola, in Cameroon, in Congo, in Ivory Coast, and it's even in the US, but it's all pirate copies. And me, I was like, and they were like, oh, we lost millions of euros. And me, I was like, wow, my music is going out there? That's the only thing I was interested in. That's why every time I spoke about piracy, I was like, it's good and it's bad for me at the same time because my name wouldn't have spread so much without piracy. As a
True
businessman,
story.
I understand the problem of piracy. So that's when, to me, when the streaming era begun, and once we had the possibility through YouTube and through Instagram, through Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, Google Music, etc. Once we had the possibility to just put my music in one place and it was available in the whole wide world, and it would just, if you find it, you can listen to it. This like was a solution to a lot of my frustration because I hated all this time making music for the world and having it only being available in French West Indies, Haiti, and France.
Yeah.
I was like, I remember having like going to the label yelling like back when I was my first album, I was signed with Sony, and when I was yelling like so it was a sub label of Sony. But I was yelling at them like, yo, I went to Rotterdam and I went to a store and they were like, yo, they would love to sell my album, but they don't have it. Why? And they would be like, listen, that store, we know what store you're talking about. They owe us money, so we're not sending the album. And I was pissed. And I was like, yo, but I got people. I met like 5 people. They were like, yo, we love your music, but we cannot buy your album. We don't find it. And so I had people literally, and I met a guy who was literally traveling from Portugal to Paris just to buy 50 or 100 of my albums and just to go back there and sell them in their shop. So people would have to come to France, take my album and sell them. And that's how that guy, I hired him to become my distributor in Portugal. And till this day, he went from being my distributor and now he sells my shows.
My God.
So
And
I've been
that's
building
interesting.
that. Yeah.
That is super interesting. Now that you say this, back when I was doing the Zimbabwean podcast, we actually did a documentary on piracy.
I want to see that. You have to send me a link.
I'll send you a link. We did. It was like a series. But anyway, let me tell you a piracy story about that.
Uh-huh.
We did this documentary series, right? We put it on YouTube. Then we had people telling us that the TV station, the national TV station in Zim, was playing it on TV.
Wow.
But they never contacted us.
Okay. Happened to
so
be.
They were taking that content, but we were just like, whatever. We're too broke to get lawyers anyway, and Zimbabwe doesn't work like that. So,
Africa.
yeah, but we did this documentary on piracy, and every artist was saying, you know what? Piracy is hurting us. Piracy is hurting us. People are selling fake CDs, blah, 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 blah. Crazy story. This is basically like 2 or 3 years before the whole piracy, the whole game changed. Because in Zimbabwe, there was a genre called urban grooves. So it basically was like we were singing American music in our own language. Okay. That's basically what it was.
Yeah.
But 2-3 years later, a genre called Zim dancehall came about.
Okay.
And basically, it's like a Zimbabwean version of Jamaican reggae dancehall.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the Zim dancehall artists were typically from like the ghetto, right? Okay. So they didn't have money to press CDs. They didn't have money to pay DJs to play their music.
Okay.
And guess what they did? They started giving their CDs to, like, we have what we call the public transport. They're called combis, like mini.
Okay. Yeah. Those. Yeah, we have the same in Congo. So you give to them, and it spreads the music, of course.
And it spreads the music.
Brilliant.
And that's how Zim dancehall actually became the biggest Zimbabwean urban genre. And the urban grooves guys were complaining about piracy while Zim dancehall is winning.
Exactly.
And this is where piracy basically, like, they realized like it ended, because the Zim dancehall guys used the resources to get their music out there. So while you're telling me about your story, I'm thinking this is exactly what happened in Zim.
And that's the thing, is like, when I talk about knowing yourself and understanding your surroundings, it is this. There is that medium, and then there's this way, and you have to use everything that's there. If piracy is there, you have to use it. You have to use it.
You're
because
right.
If you don't make money from selling the CDs, because a lot of people are pirating your CDs in a country, then the promoters will call you to come and perform, and that's where you make your money back. That's the way I see it. So that's how I've always used piracy. Actually, I remember that when Youssou N'Dour was signed to Warner or Sony, I don't remember where, he also built his own cassette plant in Portugal, so he would sell himself his pirate cassettes by himself.
That is crazy.
That's exactly what a guy that was doing hats called Von Dutch. So he was he was selling the original ones so the original ones were made in China, right?
Yeah.
So he would sell them for $200 a piece in all the big department stores, Macy's and etc. But at the same time, he would make another run after he get the order. He would make another one. He would put on Chinatown to be sold at $20 or $15 by all the Chinese pirates. But all the money would go to him anyway.
That is absolute genius.
Exactly. You have to